If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from okay to very high. Know your sleep score with Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You know those friends who support your preference for podcasts over music on road trips? That's the energy State Farm brings to insurance. With over 19,000 local agents, they help you find the coverage that fits your needs, so you can spend less time worrying about insurance and more time enjoying the ride. Download the State Farm app or go online at statefarm.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Mornings have a rhythm. You can hear it, feel it. And at Quaker, we fuel it. With 100% whole grain oats and a good source of fiber in every bowl, helping you turn that rhythm into your soundtrack for a great day. Fuel to start whatever's next. Quaker, official sponsor of FIFA World Cup 26.
The Dental Download podcast is your source for insight from conversations with fellow dentists, specialists, and leaders in the industry. With new episodes every Monday morning, I'm your host, Dr. Haley. Let's get into this week's episode.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. I'm excited with another guest this week, another amazing connection through TikTok. So make sure you guys check out her TikTok page when we're done. But I have Dr. Sammi here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Sammi Wood. I am a general dentist practicing in North Carolina. I graduated from Tufts in Boston. Before that, I lived in Florida for the majority of my life, but I did grow up in a military family, so I did move around quite a bit growing up. I did not know I wanted to be a dentist straight off the bat going into undergrad, so it was a little bit of a late decision for me. I did end up doing a 1-year post-bac at Temple Dental in Philly, and that led me to go to school at Tufts. And now we're in North Carolina because my husband is doing his cardiology fellowship here at East Carolina University.
Wow. So you've been all over the place for your personal journey, your professional journey. Are you glad you're back somewhere warmer now?
I am. I feel like we've gone up and down the East Coast, but I think Boston was really fun to be in for 4 years and experience that city life, especially while we were without kids or anything kind of tying us down. But I feel we're in a sweet spot now, and we're not completely sure where we're going to end up with our roots after this phase of life, but it feels really good to be in a more humid climate.
And did you meet while you were in dental school, or were you already together at that point?
We met 1 or 2 days before dental school started. I had just moved to Boston. I didn't have any furniture. And I think I was just waiting for an Uber to come get me, and I was just swiping on apps, and I matched with him. And I always joke that he deserves an honorary dental degree for going through all 4 of those years with me. But the timing and everything worked out so well. He was doing a postdoc himself at MGH at that point in time, so he hadn't even matched to internal medicine yet. So we were 6 months into dating, not knowing if we were going to have to do distance or not. And thank goodness he matched at one of Harvard's hospitals and stayed.
Wow. I will talk a little bit later too about balancing 2 different professionals and everything and how that goes in your household. But before we get into that, one of the things that I think you are super unique online about is that you talk about your student loan journey. You talk about very transparently that dental school is expensive and that you're paying a lot of money every month and most of it's going to interest and just the reality of that. And I think it's great because so many people are aware that dental school is expensive, but that's usually the extent of it. They don't really understand when they're maybe considering committing to that profession, what that actually looks like month to month as a working person and how it looks. So tell us a little bit about your student loan journey and kind of behind the scenes of that.
So my student loan started at $517,000 when I graduated. I was very lucky and fortunate to be part of the COVID pause of the interest, or else that would have been a very big, much bigger number. The loan at this point is now $486,000, and that is with me trying to aggressively pay it as much as I can. Taking out this amount of money, I did not realize the implications of the interest behind it. I grew up in a very middle class family. My parents were both in the military. I never saw this amount of money before in my life before I took it out. So I understood that the actual cost of attendance was going to be expensive. I had no idea what that would look like with my paycheck coming out every single month, just because I had never been exposed to that amount of money. And so I think it could be a very taboo thing for our culture to talk about these things and to face it head on, and especially with kind of pay transparency. But I think it's really important to be exposed to these sort of things right off the bat rather than living in kind of la la land.
All right, everyone. Dr. Sammi and I are about to break down her student loan experience. This is one of her most popular topics on her TikTok page and why her page has grown, because so many of us are stressed, burdened, confused, intimidated by student loans. If you're feeling that way, check out our sponsor, Twin Leaf Financial Advisors. Twin Leaf Financial Advisors is personally the company that I use for all of my financial planning. They can give you personalized student loan strategies and help you far beyond that, managing your newfound dentist income, making a plan right when you start your career so that you're setting yourself up for success. That's my biggest piece of advice. Get connected with a professional as soon as you're graduating. That way you have a good path going forward. You're not going to bury yourself into a big hole, and you're going to feel confident making your decisions. More than just doing a bunch of research online and trying to figure out what's right for you, a personalized consultation with a professional. And they offer a free first-time consultation. So go to twinleafadvisors.com. That's TWINLEAFADV.com, or you can text 321-521-3133 to connect with Twin Leaf Financial Advisors. Let's get back to that student loan talk.
When did you figure out like what this was gonna mean? Was it like your exit interview leaving dental school with the student loan people? And
one of the conversations I had with one of my mentors in school, she was one of my faculty members, but she also herself was only 2 years outside of dental school. So she was more a peer to me at that point, but she was very honest. And I distinctly remember this conversation because her parents had paid for her tuition. And so I was like, what do you mean? How did they pay for that? And so that was my first time really talking to somebody that came from that amount of money, I think, at least that I knew of. And she was kind of telling me like, the people in my class that I graduated with, they're on income-based repayment plans. And that was the first time I even like heard those words. I think even when we initially take those loans out, we all just kind of skip through those modules that we have to do. And so that was the first time I even heard of the IBR sort of plans. And so that was the first time I truly understood that it was going to be a percentage of my paycheck and that it wasn't going to be a huge number for every single situation.
Mm-hmm. When did you figure out what strategy you wanted to do when it came to paying off this debt? There's a bunch of different philosophies out there.
I think, at least for me, and I tried to give myself grace every month, I think that my strategy is going to change from month to month, year to year. I think at this point in time, while my spouse is still in a training position, I'm not in a position to just be spending money right now just because we don't have the time to. And we don't have kids and we're still nomadic. We don't own a house. So money isn't really going into like a house project or a yard project. As much as I would love to be at that point in life, kind of like how you are, we're just not there yet. And so the only places I feel like my money can go is either to invest it or to go towards the debt. And so I'm doing a little bit of both. I'm putting both in both buckets. But I think it's really helpful for my husband and I to talk about these things very candidly and openly. And we've never, ever fought about any of this part. And so I think it's really important when you're finding a spouse in life too, to know that these are hard conversations to have, especially when you're not on the same page. But at this point in time, that interest is just such a hard hit that we're mostly going for the snowball method of going for the highest interest and paying that one down first. And so the goal right now is to pay off, I think there's 4 loans that are above 7% interest rates. So I want to pay off those 4. That's going to equal about $200,000 before I can get to a kind of a 6%. And then once we're at the ones with 6%, we're going to probably start paying them down a little less aggressively.
And good for you.
But again, that could change, and that's okay too.
I mean, and good for you, by the way, with even the amount of progress you've made in just a short amount of time. It's a lot of money, and it's like you say, it can be discouraging that I saved so much to pay so much, and then only the principal only goes down by this amount, but it's only going to go up if you don't pay. So it's a balance for sure.
I just recently got invited to talk to ECU to their graduating dental students, and part of my presentation, I always log on to like my servicer. The AidVantage is one that I got paired with, but I finally logged on to like the studentaid.gov website to try to see the numbers to show them. And it gave me like a different kind of view of how much money you've paid. So it said like the $50,000 on there. And I knew it was somewhere around there. I was kind of just tracking it in my mind though. But I was like, wow, it was almost like a thermometer. And when I showed that image to the students, I mean, I did not expect this, but they started applauding me. And I was like, oh, wow, thank you so much.
That's cool, because we don't celebrate ourselves enough. Everyone's so hard on ourselves. So I'm sure that was special.
It was. I was like, wow, you guys, thank you.
So I'm curious, what have you used to figure out some financial literacy? What tools have you used? Did you take advantage of any of those like free consults that you can get as like a D4 student with different financial or loan planners? What did you kind of do to gain some of this knowledge?
We had people come our last few months of school that were financial sort of planner people, and they were all optional sessions to go to, kind of lunch and learns or dinner sessions. And so I went to one just randomly on a snowy night, and her name is Whitney, and that is somebody that my husband and I have paired with ever since, and we have like 6-month check-ins. And she has been probably my biggest crutch as we've entered into this realm of space of dealing with this amount of money, because she's the person that she first gave us, the disability and the life insurance. And that is ultimately how she makes kind of a profit off of people, but we're never actually paying her. It's just through our policies, but we're still checking in every month she's also the person I didn't even know what a high yield savings account was. And so that's how I signed up for that. And that's also, she educated me on putting money into the different buckets, saving up for a 6-month expense of what if you lose your job, and then also starting to transition to putting money towards hopefully sort of investing it. And then the ultimate goal, and this is a long time goal away, I think, from where I'm at, but the ultimate goal would be the money that you have returning from your investments to be that paying off your loan instead of your actual income going towards your loans. And so one day I would like to see that happen, but that's such a far away away.
But you're taking the baby steps now. That's what matters.
Yeah. And then she also set up the student loan repayment sort of consultation as well. And they broke down all of the methods of payment as well. But they were a great company. I was still hiding on the SAVE plan at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. And remind me, when did you graduate dental school?
I graduated 3 years ago tomorrow. So May 17th, 2023.
Okay, nice. So you're 1 year out ahead of me. Nice. So still very comparable for both of us, for sure. Nice. So tell me a little bit about your journey from graduating to now. You said you've had some moves related to your husband's career and places he needed to be. What was it like finding your first job and different jobs that you've worked so far?
So I've only worked one job out of school so far. I've been at the same small little private practice for all 3 years, and he initially matched here December of my last year of dental school. And so right away, I knew that if I was going to be following him, I would need to find something in this area. I initially had a promise of a job back in Florida, but unfortunately that kind of didn't go how we wanted it to, just because I ultimately decided to follow my family. So I was starting from what felt like ground zero, just because I've never so far had lived in North Carolina before. I didn't know really anybody in North Carolina. Any connections I would have to the state would have been 1 or 2 hours away. And so it felt really daunting at first, because I knew I was going to have to face probably most likely cold emails or cold phone calls where I was just introducing myself and taking a chance. And this was before, it's so weird to say, but this is before the time of ChatGPT doing these things for us. Now we can probably very easily make these emails. But I sat down and I just went on Google Maps and made a radius, kind of figured out the lay of the land in terms of commute time, what cities would work. And I was willing to drive. I was hoping within 45 minutes, but I was also telling myself it was going to be okay for an hour in each direction. But I made myself a little radius, and I found any dental office I possibly could within that radius. I was in no position to be picky or choosy. I just knew I needed a job and to get the ground going for for my future career. So I emailed roughly in the range of like 50-ish offices, and I found something on their website or social media that stood out to me. And I just drafted about a 3 to 4 paragraph email introducing myself, mentioning that thing that I found interesting about them, trying to forge a connection with them, and then attaching my resume to it. And out of those 50 emails, I got one reply. And so that is just kind of the plan of my life, I guess, because that one reply I was really, really lucky to get. And that is the office that I've been at since then. I also connected at that point in time with 2 recruiters from corporate offices. And then I did also find one open position for a GPR. It might have actually been an AEGD position as well at the health center here. And so I explored all 4 of those options. I came and I flew to the area February. So I sent all those emails in December. I came in February, met with all 4 of those people and offices, and then made my ultimate decision. I already knew on the plane ride back what I wanted. Thankfully, that worked out for me. And so I've been at the same office now for 3 years. It's a 2-doctor office. So it's me and my boss, and then 11 staff. And it's an office that has been there since 1970. The patients don't leave. It's a generational sort of operation where you know every single person attached to that family. And it's been a very, very special place and rewarding situation to have been in. And I feel very blessed.
Yeah, it's special to have your first place be one that you actually like and want to stick around. So that's awesome. It's not the norm. I'm glad we both like our jobs, but I definitely hear from a lot of people that have to unfortunately bounce around a bit till they find the right fit. But that's fine because there's always lessons learned.
Absolutely. And I mean, even in my own inbox too, I'm listening, and I have had a few phone calls with a few other peers as well where they're in those situations, and it makes me feel even more fortunate. Ultimately, I mean, I don't want to steal the thunder, but I'm leaving in about 5 weeks for the next phase, and this is kind of the hardship of, again, having a spouse still in training, because while my career is, and both of our careers are kind of forged in having roots and relationships with patients, it's tough to have to move around like this now.
Tell me a little bit. I know you loved this office. It sounded like you just kind of like had the feeling, but in general, or for your office specifically, what were some like red flags and green flags you think people should be looking out for when it comes to either the day they visit the office, the interview, things in their contracts? What are some of those important points?
So I think all 4 of my interactions that I just described were all very, very different. And so I think I'll just describe 2 of them, the first being where I'm at and all the green flags that came with that, and then probably the worst out of the 4. So the greatest and the job I'm at now, the doctor, his name is Brandon, was texting me the night before, even, the weeks before, and the night before texting me again, like, hey, can't wait to see you tomorrow. We meet every morning, 15 minutes before. Please come if you're able to. You can park in the back. We'll be waiting for you. So as soon as I walked into that office, they all knew I was coming. They knew what door I was coming through. I was welcomed warmly, given a tour right off the bat. And it was just a very friendly environment, and everybody interacting with me that, you're walking into an office that's still operating. So you can't just expect to have conversations right away, but everybody was giving me warm smiles and greeting me. And I spent, I think, about until 2 o'clock that day, just kind of shadowing and spending time in the office to see the route or the kind of workings of the functionality of everything. And I think the biggest takeaway from those interactions was knowing that all of the people working there had been working there at least 10 years. And so I think that's one of the biggest green flags, is knowing that there's not a huge turnover of people coming in and out the door in terms of kind of the staff and the teammates within the practice. And also just seeing how comfortable the patients are as well, because when you start talking to the patients and they say, Brandon's been my dentist as long as I can remember, for the past 20 years. Before that, there's 2 other owners, and those people have been my dentists as well. There's not a steady change of dentists either within the practice. And then to kind of put a contrast on that, the worst of the 4 experiences, I had to drive about 50 minutes from where I was living to go there that day, which is fine. That's what I was willing to do, like I mentioned earlier. But when I walked in, they had no idea who I was or who I was walking in that day. They were like, who are you? And I, of course, you're nervous. You don't know any of these people walking in, and you have to put a brave face on. fake it till you make it. And it felt crushing that they had no idea who I was, especially, when you're a new grad and you feel like you're really putting yourself out there. And I sat in the waiting room, like next to patients, which is also okay. But I was like, you guys couldn't even put me like in a consult room. Like, this is so weird. And so I just sat there for about 15 minutes in the waiting room until the office manager came and got me. And then she said, I'm so sorry. This is my last day. Like, I'm actually leaving this job. Then they finally put me into some sort of consultation room, and the doctor still took about 40 minutes after that to come say hello to me. And so that was the worst experience. So there are two very, very different situations and results. And I hope nobody ever has to experience that kind of feeling. And then also to then continue on feeling okay and happy the rest of that day, because it wasn't a good feeling.
Yeah, you're probably like, I should just go now, right? Like, you clearly are not prepared. This does not seem like this is going somewhere.
And it was so bad too, because and I would have done that because I feel like I would hope I would have more respect for myself than to sit through that after that. But my husband dropped me off because he wanted to go to the hospital and meet people. So I didn't have an exit.
You're stuck, yeah. And I mean, you are pretty desperate coming right out of school. Like, maybe that literally would be the only place that would hire you, and then you would have had to do it anyways.
Exactly. And that would have been okay too. I mean, it's just because it's a temporary thing doesn't mean it has to be a forever thing. It's just something to get the bills paid at the end of the day. But I'm happy that didn't end up being my story.
And a little bit about the past now almost 3 years that you're hitting as a dentist. What has it been like from school to the real world? How have you evolved in your confidence when it comes to your clinical skills?
I think it's been super exciting to see my confidence change throughout this time. Of course, outside of school, you're slow. You question every single thing you do. I remember the first day of work, I extracted a few teeth, and I just remember thinking, like, who else wants to agree with me that these teeth need to come out? Like, in school, you have to ask 10 different people and pour up 3 different models and articulate it to show them that these teeth need to be extracted. And I just remember thinking, do I ask my boss? And so I didn't come out of school and do a residency. I just hopped straight in. And maybe the residency would have given me more of the confidence, but I felt confident enough that I could figure it out. In this position, I should also say I'm running one column, and that's just because that's the setup of our office. It's like an old house, and there's just no other space for me to have another chair. And so I think at the end of the day, this setup, even though it could be limiting in terms of financial compensation, it does give me the allowance and the flexibility to truly focus on what I'm doing and the patient that I'm working with at that point in time. And I've seen over the past 3 years, I've seen myself quicken. I've seen myself be confident. I used to, whenever I would do a mandibular block, I would endo ice test every single tooth before I touched it because I was nervous my block didn't work. And now I feel confident after I give a block. Let's just see if it works. Like, I hope it works, but I don't spend the time to endo test anymore. I just do it. And if they feel something, then okay, we got to revisit it. We got to numb some more. And so I feel like that's a major change as well. Just kind of just going straight into it. Like, we don't need to kind of beat around the bush. We're just going to do treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself, especially when presenting treatment plans, to be shy or kind of not say what I really wanted to say. I found myself, especially if a tooth needs a crown, doing a lot of heroic dentistry just because people were sort of pushing me towards that. By that, I mean patients. They don't want to pay for this, that, or the other. And so I find myself now sort of not being more stern, but not letting those kind of things slide anymore, where I just tell the patient the truth, the honesty, the clinical findings, and I present my treatment plan. And no, we can't do that because it's not the standard of care. And that's not every single situation, but I find myself in those kind of conversations and interactions with patients much more well-spoken and not sort of having to explain myself as much, I guess.
Do you feel like the communication aspect, that confidence came from just trial and error and some awkward situations and self-critiquing, or did you have any specific books you read or podcasts or the other doctor you work with that kind of gave you guidance too?
Absolutely, just kind of self-critiquing. I should definitely read books about it. that would probably be very beneficial. But also throughout the 3 years, if I'm, for example, standing in the hallway or doing my notes and not necessarily actively doing something, and I know the other doctor is kind of doing a limited exam or presenting treatment for something more complicated, I always stand up and I go stand at the edge of this door and I always listen in just because. And I tell him, I'm like, I'm not judging you. Don't think I'm weird for doing this, but I just want to hear how he talks about it because I find myself very much mimicking the words that he's using and kind of just copy and pasting it into my own conversations with my own flair because we're not completely similar personalities. So just kind of making it my own as well. And so I think that's been super beneficial as well. And I think if you go straight into practice, without doing any sort of residency. I know everybody tosses around the word mentor a lot and what that could look like and what that could mean. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to go into an office where you're by yourself, especially straight out of school. But in terms of a mentor, for me, that has looked like somebody that isn't looking over my shoulder and looking at my treatment plans and telling me I need to treatment plan X amount of crowns this month, but it's somebody that I can step out into the hallway if something is really kind of giving me a tough time. I can say, do you have any ideas about this? What have you done in the past? And he gives me his open and honest sort of idea and his take on the situation. He's also been somebody that has stepped in on a few occasions and bailed me out of procedures that I got a little head and over my head about and has had to help me. And I've so much appreciated having somebody like that in my office.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's so nice working with, in your case, one doctor, in my case, a couple per day, but it's just so nice to not be completely alone. It's huge. Like you can be practicing independently and most 99% of the time things are good, you're chilling, you're slowly getting better like in your own sphere, but it is so nice when you need it to have someone that's physically there if you really need some support.
Especially since it's such an isolating career already. And as much as we love our teammates and our staff, there's just some things that you can't describe or you can't get your message across without somebody that knows exactly how you feel and what you mean.
And I mean, we talked already earlier about, student loans. We talked about some people don't find great jobs. We talked about some of the challenges of growing confidence as we're working. It seems like on social media, there's like the people posting like, I have the best ever and everything's great and I make so much money as a dentist. Then there's a lots of like doom and gloom and just dentistry is the worst. Don't pursue dentistry, where the reality is probably like somewhere in the middle and there's good experiences and bad experiences and every day has ups and downs. But what would you say to a young dentist that's just like, I think this is a passion of mine and something I want to pursue, but everything on social media is just confusing. Like, is it as great as these people say, or is it as terrible as these people say?
I would say to take everything that you see on social media with a grain of salt because if those people are truly making that much money, good for them. But who knows without seeing their paychecks every single week, every single month, who knows? And if they are, then good for them because they're going to get those loans paid off fast. And as far as like the doom and gloom, maybe they're just in a really tough situation and they're not in the right spot for them. And they're sort of just kind of venting to not feel isolated themselves at this point in time. I absolutely think it's somewhere right in the middle. And it's not been all rainbows and butterflies on my end as well these past 3 years. I'm sure you can feel the same way. At the end of the day, there's so much to be said, especially like, I don't know, this past week I had a patient that came in the first time I ever met them. She said pain was a 10. She'd never been in so much pain in her life. And when she walked out, she was giving me tears of happiness and giving me a hug and saying I was the best thing ever. There's no words to describe the ability of what we're able to do for people. And while sometimes that can be aesthetics and fun cases, but for me, that feeling comes from truly helping somebody that's in a severe amount of pain like that. So I do think it falls somewhere in the middle. And as much as I love the career, I think it's truly the meaningful connections you get to make with people. And I knew I always wanted to be some sort of healthcare worker, but I also knew that I didn't want to see people just one time. I wanted to see them fairly often and to truly know things about them and be able to follow up in their personal life, and have those conversations 6 months later. How's the baby you had? How's your kids? And as far as sort of, is it good, is it bad? I think it's so much about perspective and how you see the world yourself, because if you're going to be negative Nancy about everything, nothing's ever going to change that. I don't think any career will ever change that. Do I like getting out of bed every morning at 6 a.m.? No. But do I like coming home at 5 p.m. thinking, I just really made a difference in someone's day? Yeah, I love it. And so I think it's so much about your mindset and knowing I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m., but hey, guess what? I get to wake up at 6 a.m. because I'm highly educated and I have the ability to do this for somebody else. So absolutely right in the middle.
Mindset is huge. It really is everything. And you've done, from what I saw on TikTok at least, a few other like side jobs and dental volunteering and things. So you've worked in other places for days at a time and things like that. So tell me about those experiences.
So I have really let these loans. There's been good days and bad days with those as well. And so in one of my more bad days where I was really in the slumps about, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for this? Should I get a job as like a waitress or just something on the weekends, like a barista? And so I started going on LinkedIn trying to see like weekend only jobs. And for some reason, I looked up like weekend dentists. And so this one company came up and they contract themselves through the military to do sort of exams for soldiers for their military readiness exams for their whole health and well-being. But I saw that they had openings and I think they're kind of constantly hiring, but I took a chance and I wanted to see what it was all about and knew that it was just going to be an interview. So I took the phone interview and they kind of mentioned, you're not signing a contract. If you do it once and you don't want to do it again, you don't have to. Like, it's pretty easy to get out of it. So I was like, okay, I'll go try. And so I did try, and it's a company it's predominantly in the state that you practice in, but if you hold other licenses as well, you can get opportunities in other states. But I went and I worked, and it is not like anything I've ever seen before in terms of like their equipment. I mean, the chairs that they're sitting in are like lawn chairs. So it's by no means what I have in my office. The tools themselves, a condenser is a condenser, an explorer is an explorer for the most part. But those are all up to par, but it's just the chair itself. And so I think from working those weekends, it's definitely been more demanding on my physical well-being because I'm also myself sitting in a stool that I've fallen in at those things like 3 times now. And you're in like a garage kind of setting. And so you're hitting like concrete on your elbow. And so I think the physical demand of it is a lot. But there was a span of time where I worked 21 days straight because we were open 2 Fridays in a row at my office, and I worked both weekends, Saturday and Sunday. I'd never want to do that in my life again. That was awful. I think at the end of that, I just wasn't in the best headspace to be a provider to my everyday patient that deserves my complete attention and wholeheartedness. But at the end of the day, it has been a fulfilling thing to do, but I've sort of been limiting myself to doing it about 1 weekend a month at this point now.
Yeah, there has to be a balance. And it's like sometimes, like, even if what you did was rewarding, sometimes like you can get the paycheck and just be like, okay, but like all that for like no break. I probably should like take care of myself a little bit too.
Like, at what cost did I just do
Yeah,
that?
exactly. So I get it. I get it. And I'm sure it was probably cool for you coming from like a military background too, like the work itself being rewarding.
Absolutely, yeah. And I always, when I'm there, text my parents pictures of like the equipment and stuff, and they know exactly what it is. So that's been really fun. And the other thing I did to sort of try to increase production as well, we always work 1 Friday a month, the whole staff at my office, and up until Memorial Day. And then the summer, there's no Fridays. But I asked my boss, hey, if I can find some volunteers, would you be open to us having another Friday? And he was open. And so I found sort of volunteer basis where 2 hygienists in North Carolina, only 2 hygiene can be practicing under 1 dental license, but 2 hygienists that would come in, and then one of my assistants in front desk, and we were open. And oh my goodness, we were open another extra Friday as well on top of that. So that's been kind of buffers to try to supplement to help me more so put more money into that, aggressively paying down the student loan as well.
And let's talk before we wrap up a little bit about being married to someone that's still doing their training. That is obviously challenging because you're probably the primary breadwinner for the family, you would think, but you also used to be a student not that long ago. So, like, what is all of that like with your family and kind of budgeting and how you guys like to structure things?
I am so fortunate and lucky, I know to have such a supportive partner. I know that I am the breadwinner, and I'm so proud of that at this point in time, and I mention it on a weekly basis because I only have a few years to be the breadwinner, but having somebody that absolutely understands where I'm at, what I'm coming from, when I come home from a long day and I kind of need some nonverbal time, he just knows. And I before this relationship, I had been broken up with a few times because I wanted to pursue higher education. And so finding somebody that had, without a doubt, knowing that how much I needed to work and supported me was just such the biggest, I feel like luckiest moment of my life because he was in that library with me every single day of dental school because he himself was doing research for his postdoc. And I remember like I would leave him in the library and I would go to SimClin, and dental school is such a new environment because you're like, how much do I study the book work? How much do I practice my hand skills? How do you break up the time of this and that? And then I was also, okay, how much time do I give to my relationship now? And I would say, okay, I'm going to go to SimClin for a few hours. You stay here in the library. And then I would say, I'm going to come back at 5. And then suddenly it would be 9 o'clock and I was walking back to the library. And I would say, I'm so sorry that I just left you here for an extra 4 hours. And he would just say, I don't care. I was just doing my own work. And whereas another relationship could be mad at you and not talk to you, and they would have left the library. So I feel so lucky to have found somebody that supported me like that. And now it's kind of opposite because now I'm enjoying life, and now I have to have that space for him because he comes home from work every single day. He's about to finish cardiology now, but he has 2 boards in front of him this summer and fall, so he's coming home and he's exhausted, and now he has to sit upstairs in his office and study, and so every day I come home and I try to be fairly quiet. He always tells me I can turn the TV on, but I don't want to because I want him to study, kinda knowing that I should enjoy and can enjoy life, but still give him the space that he gave me all those years at the same time. And I know we have just about 3 years in front of us, and then we can finally turn the TV on as loud as we want and just hang out and watch movies every single night. But at this point in time, we do enjoy life. We do things, but there's a time and place for every single thing. And so we're moving again this June, mid-June, for he matched electrophysiology at Wake Forest. So we're moving again, and hopefully this will be his final phase of training of life. The other super, super awesome thing that I feel so happy about is that he does not have any student loans. So he did life the right way, but it's been really awesome to have somebody else in healthcare. Especially, I can't believe how much he knows about anatomy. When I come home and I try to explain something, and he can almost explain head and neck anatomy better than I can, which it's
There you go, right?
humbles me.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's so special. And like you said, it's a lot of women get afraid to pursue dentistry because they're afraid that it will hinder like their personal life and timelines and all these different things. And like, just goes to show one, like you probably had no idea what your timeline of life would look like before you met him to what your life is like now. And you also didn't even know that it could be possible to have such a supportive partner who's like so on your side and just rooting for you like that. So it's out there and it's possible. So people should not settle for anything less.
You deserve more. Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, do you have any like closing thoughts or advice for people that are either about to start working or kind of just getting going with their dentistry careers?
I would say to stay true to yourself. I wouldn't sway one way or another when especially starting a new job. If you have a little voice in your ear of either it be like an office manager or a front desk personnel that didn't necessarily go to dental school that's telling you to do something one way, remember your training. Remember how hard you've worked for that degree on the wall, and keep your foot down to stay true to yourself and your own ethics. I would also say to not stay anywhere that doesn't respect you or value you. But I would also be very careful to say, don't necessarily leave a position quite yet without knowing your next step. of life, just from a financial perspective as well, and to not dig yourself a big hole if possible. But of course, if it's a truly awful situation, you have to feel out what's best for you and your family. And I would also just say, never isolate yourself. Always lean on your classmates that you had and your friendships from dental school. And you can get such tunnel vision into thinking, I'm doing this way, and there's no other possible way to do it. But there could be an easier way out there, and maybe your mentor or your boss just has never used it and hasn't been exposed to it. But there could be some special example of this is instead of packing cord, you can put the paste around the gingival sulcus instead. I never knew that until a year ago. So it's things like that where you're not doing it wrong, but there's an easier way to do it. And so don't limit yourself to interactions with colleagues or friends, just day-to-day interactions like, how do you do this? Or what do you do for that? And also, I would also suggest staying up to date with your local dental society, going to, if your state or your local society has like an annual session, go. I know we as students probably always went because we got to go for free. But I think it's super important to still go to those sort of things and to support your local societies as well. And you'll find some really great colleagues along the way there as well.
I totally agree with that, especially like you relocated after school and like I did too. So it's a good way to actually meet some other people in your area that you might be like referring to, or just people that get the dentistry things that you do, or the kind of way to start making a community in a new place when you start working.
My other tip would also be to get to know your lab, especially if they're a local lab. We use 2 labs that are like in our small town. I wouldn't even call it a city, but we send one lab crowns and we send another lab dentures. The technicians there, I've learned more from them than I ever learned in school. And it's been so easy to just pick up the phone and say, hey, what would you do in this situation? And they do this every single day, for years of their lives. And so you can learn so much beneficial from the people that are working with you in your lab. Sorry, that was
Absolutely.
random, but I'm so thankful for them.
No, it's true. I mean, you learn from so many different directions when you're
Mhm.
graduated, which is so cool. Last thing. If people want to ask you questions, people want to keep up with you now that they got to know a little bit about you, what is the best place for them to follow along?
Yes, you can absolutely. I post videos talking about all of these subjects that we've mentioned today on my TikTok, which is at Sammi Wood 3. And if you ever need my email is drsammywood@gmail.com. I'd be happy to hear from you or to answer any follow-up questions, or if you just need a listening ear, to be there for you as well.